Welcome to the Madison Miller Podcast Special Edition Series 2024 NFL Offseason Preview and Predictions. This is the third of 32 episodes, and this episode will be about the Baltimore Ravens as we'll discuss their free agents to be, team needs, a candidate for the franchise tag, a trade candidate, a release candidate, an extension candidate, a draft fit, a free agent fit, and a bold prediction for the offseason for the team. All right, let's start with the free agents to be of note. Odell Beckham Jr., John Simpson, the guard, starting left guard on the Ravens. Kevin Zeitler, the starting right guard on the Ravens. J.K. Dobbins, who's always hurt. Backup quarterback Tyler Huntley. Defensive end Brent Urban. Defensive tackle Justin Madubuike. Edge rusher Jadeveon Clowney. Inside linebacker Patrick Queen. Kyle Van Noy, the other outside linebacker. Geno Stone, starting safety. And Devin Duvernay, who is on special teams for them and is a wide receiver. All right, that's a lot of big names on this list here for the Ravens. So let's get into it. So team needs wide receiver, a couple free agents. Guard, both their starting guards are free agents. Edge rusher, both linebacker and DN. Defensive tackle, inside linebacker, safety, and corner. So pretty much they have needs all over their defense for the offseason. So franchise tag candidate, there's a couple on this team. So they're going to be having to make tough decisions. And the guy to me that is the franchise tag candidate is Justin Madubuike, who really had a great year for the Ravens in the middle of their defense. He really put it together this year. 14 sacks, a forced fumble. So this is a really underrated player for the Ravens, and he's the guy that I think they're going to use the tag on. There's a couple other candidates to get the tag on this team, but I think he needs to be the favorite because career year, broke out in a big way, considering he was a third-round pick. And I think that he needs to prove that he could do it again. So I think he's the logical franchise tag candidate on this team. Trade candidate, I'm going to say offensive tackle Daniel Falele. So the case for that is that Ronnie Stanley and Morgan Moses, they're your tackles. And you have them both locked up. Falele was a fourth-round pick 2 years ago in 2022. And he's a backup on this team, but barely played this year and the year before. Did allow a few sacks the last couple years and only got 2 penalties 2 seasons ago in 2022. So I could see somebody like trading like a 6th or 7th round pick for Falele as like a change of scenery guy or whatever. Release candidate, Michael Pierce. Really solid interior defensive lineman for the Ravens. He was 31 years old. 3 years, $16 million, so he's making a little over like $5 million a year. So he's going to be a free agent after the year. So I could see them trying to get younger at that position. So Michael Pierce, to me, sticks out as a release candidate on this team. And then extension candidate, I'm going to say Patrick Queen. He had a decent year this year. They obviously declined the option. So that's why he is slated to be a free agent. He had 32 assists, 92 tackles, 1 pick, and a forced fumble. He was good in 2022 as well, after looking like a bust his first 2 years in the league. So the fact that he followed it up with this type of season, I think that Patrick Queen is a logical extension candidate on this team. But say if they franchise tag Madubuike and Patrick Queen tests the market, that would be a big loss for the Baltimore Ravens on the interior side of their linebackers. Draft fit, I'm going to say Chris Braswell out of Alabama. He's a defensive end. Their defensive ends are old. Kyle Van Noy, Jason Pierre-Paul. Jadeveon Clowney. Pierre-Paul is on a different team. Yeah, Van Noy and Clowney are both old. Braswell will just be a good fit. They have Alabama guys on their defense already. I had him going to the Ravens in my mock draft, the last one I did. So Braswell there makes some sense. Adonai Mitchell makes sense. Nate Wiggins makes sense. Brian Thomas Jr. makes some sense. Clay McKinstry, if he were to drop, makes sense. Even Jordan Morgan makes sense if they want to get younger at tackle. But yeah, to me, Chris Braswell makes a lot of sense for the Ravens as a draft fit. A free agent fit, I'm going to say Michael Pittman Jr. He's younger. Odell, as we know, has a lot of injury issues. Zay Flowers really looked like a number 1 for them at times this past season. And Pittman, I don't know if he will be retained by the Colts. So I think Michael Pittman there would be a good fit in the Odell spot. I'm not suggesting that it might be an upgrade or a downgrade, but I do think that he can replicate the production Odell gave them. And Nelson Aguilar is also going to be a free agent. Rashad Bateman is a guy that doesn't stay healthy a lot, so I could see Pittman being a good free agent fit as well. But yeah, there's a lot of guys that make sense. Josh Allen makes a lot of sense. The edge rusher, Josh Allen. If the Jaguars were to let him hit the open market, even T. Higgins, but I don't see him going to Baltimore. Brian Burns would make sense. We talked about Madubuike already, since we're talking Ravens. Christian Wilkins, Antoine Winfield, Jalen Johnson. But yeah, a lot of guys makes sense for the Ravens. I made the case for Michael Pittman. To me, he would make a lot of sense for the Ravens. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. But my bold prediction for the Ravens this offseason is that the team will sign former Patriot, or soon-to-be former Patriot, Michael Onwenu, 4 for $88. Onwenu's going to be a free agent. I think that there's a possibility that the New England franchise tags somebody else. So, I'm going to say that Onwenu goes to Baltimore, and you could argue he is better than what they had this season, and it just provides more protection for Lamar Jackson. He's 26 years old, too, so that is a big deal. So I'm going to say they signed Michael Onwenu 4 for $88. I think that's just a really good fit with Lamar Jackson and that offense in Baltimore. Futures to look out for them next year. I don't know if they're going to be favored to win their own division, and they were the 1 seed this past season. Joe Burrow's coming back from the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's not forget that. So, if the Ravens are somehow, let's say the Bengals are favored in that division next year, and the Ravens are like over 4-1 to win that division, maybe even over 3-1, I would potentially look at that for them. If their win total is anything north of 11, I'll take the under, because Burrow's back. The Steelers, I think, are going to be better. The Browns are still going to be there, even with Watson instead of Joe Flacco. Watson's better than Joe Flacco, let's be honest. Joe Flacco was just hot for a couple weeks, and that net him comeback player of the year. But that's a rant saved for the Browns podcast about that and the comeback player of the year call. So that division's arguably the best in football. So I would go under if the total were higher than 11. But on the flip side, if the total were anything less than 10, I would take the over. Because I just don't see the Ravens winning less than 10 games, but at the same time, more than 11 games. It's weird. They just scream 10, 11 wins because of that division. And healthy Lamar, that should be in the double-digit wins. And they're going to get better, you would think, with some of free agents that they could potentially go after, and they might slide into a good draft pick. So I wouldn't rule out the Ravens repeating as division champs next year. Lamar Jackson, I want to see what his odds are for a repeat of the MVP award. If he's in double digits, I would consider it. Because let's face it, Patrick Mahomes is going to be the favorite because he's Patrick Mahomes. And then you would think Christian McCaffrey's going to be up there. You're going to think Joe Burrow, coming off the injury, is going to be back up in the conversation. Even like thinking in different quarterbacks, Josh Allen's going to be up there. Jordan Love is going to be everybody's darling, let's be honest. He's going to be the darling MVP pick going into next year. We're going to save that for the Packers podcast. So Lamar MVP is one that I would look at. We don't know what rookies they're going to have, so it's hard to speculate on offensive or defensive rookies of the year for the Ravens. But win total, to me, is interesting for them. Lamar MVP, and obviously Super Bowl for them. If they're in the 20s or high teens for the Super Bowl, I would also consider the Ravens for that as well. And in the conference, I think they'll probably be like 8 or 9-1 to win the conference, depending on what they do this offseason. All right, so there you have it for the Baltimore Ravens. Next up will be the Buffalo Bills, another contender in the AFC.